She was a beloved Auburn University professor, a trailblazer in veterinary medicine, and a devoted mother. But just this past weekend, Dr. Julie Gard Schnuelle took her dog for a walk and was savagely killed. And as a community mourns, police say they have a suspect. Here's what we know. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. We go to Auburn, Alabama. Retired Auburn University professor and veterinarian Dr. Julie Gard Schnuelle is found dead. She is found dead in a wooded area of the Kiesel Park this past Saturday, September 6th. According to WRBL, she had driven to the park to just simply walk her dog. This is a place she apparently loved to go. WWNY-TV reports that investigators have concluded her injuries were consistent with a brutal assault that caused her death. The Lee County coroner said that the doctor's injuries appeared to be consistent with the use of a sharp force instrument, talking, quote, multiple sharp force injuries. And this is important too. Apparently her car had been stolen too, a red Ford F-150. She was 59 years old. She was a mother. She taught at the Auburn University College of Veterinary Medicine from 2003 to 2021. According to the New York Times, she specialized in animal reproduction, dairy production, bovine embryology. According to the university, the doctor earned her degree in veterinary medicine in 1996. She became a professor in 2015. She even worked, by the way, at one point for the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Dr. Alan Riley, an Auburn alum, program chairman of the Jefferson County Veterinary Medical Association, said he is in shock. Explained that Dr. Schnuelle had taught a professional certification class for vets in Birmingham just last month and said, quote, she's been here before speaking to veterinarians from all over the state. She was well known. Auburn University released a statement. Quote, Julie Gard Schnuelle, DVM, PhD, was a beloved member of the Auburn University's College of Veterinary Medicine and the Auburn family. She served as a faculty member in the Department of Clinical Sciences in the Large Animal, Food Animal section from 2003 to 2021 when she retired as a professor emerita. She was a cherished educator, mentor, and colleague whose dedication to students and passion for theriogenealogy and veterinary medicine left a lasting impact on Auburn. Dr. Gard Schnuelle's legacy of compassion, scholarship, and service will continue to inspire generations of veterinarians. The Auburn Police Department is leading the investigation, and all questions should be referred to them. Auburn sends our sincere condolences to the family and loved ones of Dr. Gard Schnuelle during this unimaginably difficult time. Destiny Bearden-Patterson, a former student and friend, told AL.com she was amazing. She was a force. She was only a little bit over 5'2", not your typical large animal veterinarian. She was a force in this world, such a bright, bright light, just an all-around wonderful human being that is going to be missed terribly. And she explained how the doctor loved to run at Kiesel Park, took her dogs with her there. And as I ask on so many episodes of Sidebar, who would do this? Well, this is where we go to the next chapter, because police have made an arrest. 28-year-old Harold Rashad Dabney III. He has been charged with 2 counts of capital murder. We are talking about the potential of the death penalty on the table. How did they catch him? This is interesting. Apparently, law enforcement was called the next morning, Sunday, and they were called regarding a suspicious person that was located about 3 to 4 miles from the park at around 8:30 a.m. That is when they moved in. Now, reporting is kind of limited on this. We don't know exactly what he said, what he did, how he appeared, but law enforcement reportedly observed something for them to say he's the suspect, he's the killer. Although officials apparently believe he stole her car after the killing. And by the way, it's been reported that that car has been found too. They believe that he abandoned that car in a pumpkin patch. By the way, her dog that she was walking with, located, found, reportedly okay, has not been harmed. Now, authorities are being tight-lipped. They're not providing a lot of details of the alleged murder or, again, what evidence they have linking Dabney to the attack, the circumstances surrounding the arrest. We do know, though, he's currently being held without bond at the Lee County Jail, but I do want to talk about this. By the way, talking about a video like this, let me tell you, we here at Sidebar, we produce so many video clips a day. We use a platform called Opus Clip. This may be a very big interest to you because it's an all-in-one AI editor that makes it easier and faster to cut, create, and upload videos across all social media platforms. Through the power of AI, Opus Clip automatically generates B-roll, it cleans up audio, and it reframes your videos for any platform. It is so easy to start using. I'm going to show you how right now. All you got to do is go to opus.pro/sidebar, sign up, and then upload a video. In just a few minutes, you will have tons of perfectly edited clips ready to go. So whether you're making videos for TikTok, Shorts, Instagram Reels, Opus Clip is your one-stop shop for getting your best content seen by more viewers across all these platforms with the press of just one button. And if you're wondering how good these AI edited video clips are from Opus Clip, I mean, just look at our content here at Law&Crime. Our producers have used Opus to help us cut and share some of our most major trial clips, and we get them to you very, very fast. At Sidebar, we know our listeners have a lot of opinions and ideas to share, and this is the most powerful tool there is to help you edit like a pro and grow your own audience. So give it a try for yourself. Go to opus.pro/sidebar to start creating your own videos today. All right, so I want to get into what may be happening here, and I want to bring on Michael P. Hanle, who's a criminal defense attorney out of Birmingham, Alabama. Thank you so much for taking the time. First of all, is this big news there? Because it's making waves across the entire country. It feels so shocking. Are a lot of people talking about this?
It is being covered widely in the news. In my circles, it's not getting a lot of reaction because, frankly, we see this type of capital murder charge every week.
You see charges like this every week?
Yes, we do. More and more of our counties around the state of Alabama are charging capital murders regularly. In my hometown, Birmingham and Jefferson County, there is a capital murder trial every jury term, and that's 32 weeks a year. And sometimes multiple judges. We have 6 judges who do trial level work in Jefferson County. You can bet that at least 1 or 2 of them will have a capital murder trial every trial term.
Let me just ask about that for a second. So, to be clear, you are saying you are having defendants who are being charged with capital murder where the death penalty is being pursued and on the table. And if I'm correct about this, why are you seeing prosecutors doing that? And is that a backlog of death penalty cases? Because you and I both know it can take a long time between when someone's actually convicted and actually there's a sentence of death that's imposed versus when they're actually executed. I mean, let's start right there. Why are we seeing this kind of, I don't even know what the right word is, not preference, but we're seeing prosecutors moving forward with capital murder. So they're moving forward with the death penalty in every one of these cases?
My opinion is that a lot of district attorneys' offices overcharge cases as capital when they could technically be a felony murder or just an intentional murder. It adds a degree of leverage to them when the cases are being negotiated and litigated. They know that they can simply pull death off the table and changes the entire dynamic of a case. You know, one of my good friends is trying a capital murder trial this week in Jefferson County, double homicide. So, you know, it happens routinely, and I think it's done with some degree of intention.
Let's talk about what's happening here. The charges here, we're talking about 2 counts of capital murder. According to WRBL, 1 is capital murder kidnapping, and another is capital murder robbery. That's what the reporting indicates. So one appears to be a killing during the course of an abduction, right, of this professor,
yes,
I suppose, and the other is a killing during maybe the course of allegedly trying to take the car. Why would you have 2 charges here, and what does that say about the theory of the case?
Well, I don't think it says anything about the theory of the case at this moment because it just happened. The district attorney's office and the local law enforcement in Lee County are still investigating this case. But they know that there's a death, and they know that there was a vehicle, an F-150 pickup truck, that was taken from the victim. And so it becomes easy for them to charge in district court by way of criminal complaint This particular defendant with capital murder in a robbery, they found the vehicle nearby where he was. The kidnapping is somewhat questionable. I don't know what their basis is for that, but these are easy charges to file on the front end.
Well, does it? I'm going to push back a little bit. To me, it does say something. It says that the intent was to take the car, right? It's different if somebody were to kill somebody and then afterwards take the car to escape. I don't know if they would be able to say that was robbery per se. Doesn't it give them a theory about, well, he was allegedly trying to abduct her or allegedly trying to take the car? Maybe I'm wrong about that, but doesn't this seem to indicate what the motivation might have been, the sequence of events at the very least?
Yes, it does. And I don't disagree with you. The robbery seems to make a lot more sense initially because they find that the car is not where she may have left it. It's seen in the area where, this person is arrested. So yes, the robbery, capital murder robbery seems to make sense. What I don't understand is where the kidnapping aspect of that is.
Right.
If she's in the dog park walking her dog, and he, confronts her, accosts her, kills her, and takes her keys and leaves, it just may be harder for them to connect those dots. But it's very early in this process.
Do you think it's the circumstances here of this beloved Auburn professor who is killed in this park where they're saying, we need to make an example of this, this is an egregious crime, this is also warranting seeking, again, if they are seeking this, and I believe that they are seeking the death penalty in this case?
I don't know that it says as much about the circumstances as it does just the violent nature of the crime. Yes, this was a professor or a former professor from Auburn who was killed. But apparently the violent nature of this offense, leaving the professor in the dog park to be found by some passerby eventually, is part of what's going on with that. I think this is a young man who, from my research, has no prior felony arrests, let alone convictions. He's got a prior traffic violation, so he's not some history of violent conduct that causes them to seek this crime and punishment. So I think it's got to have some factor into her status there at Auburn and the violent nature of the offense.
In your experience, what you're seeing right now, is it tough to find a death penalty qualified jury? Is it tough finding jury members who say they are open to imposing the death penalty?
I think far from it. We're able to seat juries in every capital case. The struggle is for criminal defense lawyers to not death qualify, but to life qualify a jury. To get a jury to understand that death is not demanded in a capital case, that life without possibility of parole is an equal punishment, and it should be considered. So, no, we don't have any problems qualifying juries. It's very hard for defense lawyers to kind of do our job to make sure that they understand that death is not the only option.
In other words, in Alabama, what you're seeing is in these trials where death penalty is on the table, you're seeing a majority of jurors voting in favor of the imposition of the death penalty?
No, I think it depends on where you're at.
Okay.
I think, Jefferson County has a history of returning fewer death verdicts in capital murder cases. And I think it's the cosmopolitan nature of our community, the mixed, origins and nationalities that we have. We're more of a big city. As you get out into some of the smaller areas, smaller counties around the state, you have more death verdicts. And I think that's because of the rural composition. You have less of an influx of influence in those kind of areas.
What is the execution rate in Alabama? In other words, how often does it happen? How soon after conviction Could you see someone being executed? And I know that can be a long road given appeals and habeas corpus motions for them to be released. But what is, as you know, what are we seeing in terms of the actual execution rate? How often does it happen, and how soon after a conviction?
We have over 100 people on death row. Alabama has not been very quick to execute people. We've recently changed from lethal injection as the primary option for death to using nitrogen hypoxia, which is a relatively uncharted area of execution. We have, another person scheduled here, I think in October or November of this year. It will be I believe, the fourth execution by nitrogen hypoxia within the past year. So we have started to see more executions scheduled now that nitrogen hypoxia seems to be an effective way, at least effective for the state, of imposing that death sentence. We have hundreds of cases that are being brought every year in capital murder cases. We're not making a dent in the population that are sitting in our home and prison there in death row. They did, a few years ago, we enacted the Fair Justice Act, I believe that was the name of it, that requires criminal appeals in death penalty cases and Rule 32s, which is similar to a habeas petition, to coincide at the same time. In an effort for the state's effort to speed up that process. It's not unusual to have cases, death cases linger for 15, 20, 25 years before an execution takes place. And so that was their attempt to speed up the process. It's relatively new, so I'm not sure how it's working.
Why are police, let's go to this case more specifically, why are police seemingly not revealing any information about the killing or the arrest?
As I said, it just happened. It makes the news because it's a violent death. It's a person of known interest in the Auburn community, but they're still investigating this case. It's been 3 days, 4 days today. I don't know that the young man has had an opportunity to be seen by a judge. When I looked yesterday, he had not been seen by a judge. He had not been appointed an attorney to represent him. So it's very early in the process, and I think law enforcement is kind of purposefully not throwing a lot of stuff into the media.
But you and I both know that sometimes law enforcement or prosecutors can make announcements or have press conferences once there's an arrest, even before there's an arraignment. What is the danger of releasing information at this point? Or is it just they're still trying to figure out what happened? But at the same point, they had enough to say, we believe he's the suspect. They haven't indicated what those observations were from law enforcement to say he was the guy. Why not release that information right now? Is there a danger? What is that danger?
Well, I found that interesting as well. These unknown actions that potentially linked him to this crime, I'd be curious to see what those are. And why they're not disclosing those is interesting as well. Maybe he's not the right person. That's one potential. Or maybe there's more than one person involved in this, and they're trying to follow up those leads. So I think it's prudent police work not to go out there and release a bunch of details if there's some questions remaining about how this happened. And that may be part of the kidnapping portion of it as well.
Yeah, and again, I laid it out before, kind of what led to him, suspicious, they observed something. Generally speaking, in your experience, what do you think, possibly, what do you think law enforcement's observations were that led to his arrest? Could it be, what do you think he was doing or saying or acting or had on him or the way he appeared? What do you think generally, what could be observations that led to his arrest?
Well, I think the obvious observation would be, does he have blood on him? And we don't know how the victim was killed, but does he have blood on him? Does he have a weapon in his hands of some variety? Is he coherent? Is he making sense? Is he talking about, this, what happened? Is he making statements as he's standing there in public? It's hard to weigh in on what those observations could be, but I mean, there's numerous things.
By the way, if you were assigned his case, okay, how does it work for anybody listening? Do you say, you sit down with a client and you say, okay, did you do it? Or do you say, okay, tell me what happened? How does that initial meeting work with a client?
I don't ever ask my clients, did you do it? Okay. My job as a criminal defense lawyer is to zealously represent my client. I'm going to ask them, tell me what happened. Tell me your version of the facts in this case. It's important for me to get that type of information from my client, as well as I want to know who you are. I want a biography. I want to know about you. And then we'll get around to what does the state of Alabama say the facts are. And at that point, then we can begin to have meaningful conversations with the client about, okay, this is what they say. Did you have a cell phone with you? Is there did they seize your cell phone? Is there going to be some type of data dump in your cell phone that's going to provide law enforcement with additional information? Tell me about that. What are they going to see when they look at your phone? So I'm more interested in hearing what my client's version of the facts are and, the potential pitfalls that we may see as we begin to navigate the case.
Do you know why I asked you that question? I'll tell you why, because I just was in CrimeCon in Denver this past weekend.
Okay.
And I got asked multiple times, what happens if you're representing somebody and they say, I did it, I committed this murder, but I want you to get me off. What do you do then? What does a defense attorney do then? What is their obligations at that point? A lot of people came up to ask me, so I throw the question to you.
As I said before, my obligation to my clients is to zealously represent them, to vigorously defend them. And that involves whether they're guilty or not. You begin to build a case. You work the case, you work the facts, you force the state of Alabama in my jurisdiction, or the U.S. Attorney's Office, to prove their case.
Right.
It's not about whether your client is guilty or not. Can the state prove that guilt? And that's why we have jury trials.
That's exactly what I said. I said the prosecution has a burden, and it is the job of a defense attorney to hold the prosecution to that burden. And every criminal defendant, whether they do or not, is entitled. They have a constitutional right.
I'm not concerned about whether my client is factually guilty or not. Not my responsibility. Mine is to defend him and to force the state to do their job. And that's what we have trials for.
What do you think is happening right now behind the scenes? Do you think that they've interviewed him? Are they looking into his life? What do you think is going on right now?
I think that they've tried to talk to him. If he was smart, he would ask for a lawyer. I can't say that always happens with my clients. Did they go through that process properly? Did they Mirandize him? Did they tell him he had a right to an attorney, and so on? I think they're also looking for other sources of corroborating information. Are there surveillance cameras in and around that area? Can they use the flock camera system to, track, the victim's drive to the park? When did she get there? How long was she there? Is there other, corroborating evidence that they can go out there and find? Are there people who potentially saw an interaction between, the defendant and the victim? So there's a lot of things that law enforcement is probably trying to get. Cell phone records, hers and his, if he had a cell phone. There's a lot of stuff going on in the background trying to confirm, what they may believe is actually happening here. And if not, how it changes their course of the investigation.
According to Action 8 News, Mr. Dabney may have a criminal history here consisting of being charged back in December of 2023 of possessing a sawed-off shotgun. So not only a crime, it's a felony, you know, for our audience, a crime punishable, but
yes.
You're in prison. This was out in Virginia Beach. However, prosecutors apparently, they didn't move forward with the felony charge. They did move forward on misdemeanor gun, public intoxication, and trespassing charges. He was found guilty on those. Michael, why drop a felony charge? And B, is any of that going to affect his current case?
It's hard to say why the district attorney out in Virginia may have, you know, chosen to plea bargain away from that felony. There could be a number of reasons, but I can't speculate on that. Will it have some impact on his case here? Yes. He's going to ask for a bond at some point in time. Right now, he's got a no bond. Once he's assigned an attorney or an attorney is retained by, you know, family, he's going to want to ask the court to grant him a bond. And the DA's office is certainly going to bring up that fact as an aggravator, as a reason why he's considered a danger and shouldn't be released. And so, yes, it's going to have some bearing on the future bond issues in his case.
Is this going to matter? Let me throw this to you. So apparently at first, Auburn police said that Dabney was from Montgomery. The arrest paperwork came out and apparently says his address is in Auburn. So Assistant Chief Mike Harris came out and said that police spoke with Dabney regarding a misdemeanor obstructing governmental operations charge for allegedly refusing to provide his address. But then he eventually gives the Auburn address. Chief Harris says, quote, "We are still actively investigating and working to determine any connection to addresses here in Auburn. The Dunford address was used on the warrant because it was the last known address he personally provided, but his driver's license lists a Montgomery address." Is anything important about that?
I don't think so. His home address, where he physically resides, is irrelevant to the charges. Whether he was from Montgomery and drove over to Auburn, or whether he was from Lee County and happened to be in the area, is not going to change, you know, his criminal charges. Now, it may have some question about bond. You know, where do you actually live? Is there some place that we can tie an address to? Because eventually, family's going to say, "Hey, we want him out. If we get him out, he's going to come live with me at this address, or he's going to return to his home, which may be a different address." So, you know, in the long run, I don't think it matters for the criminal charges. It may for the bond issue.
Now, let me just say this. Yes, we've been talking kind of the legal logistics, what's happening with the investigation. It's an interesting discussion, but just to full circle, this is a terrible, terrible crime. I mean, my gosh, this Auburn professor who was beloved, to be killed like this is really, really tragic and tough to kind of digest for a moment. So I just want to take it back to her. Our hearts and prayers go out to her family, her loved ones, the community. We're going to continue to follow it. But Michael Hanle, thank you so much for taking the time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Good seeing you again.
And that is all we have for you right now here on Sidebar, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you should get your podcasts. You can follow me on X or Instagram. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.